Welcome all of you to the CSGF annual review. Normally you'd see Jim Coronas up here, but as president of Krell, but Jim's unavailable, so you're stuck with me. I'm Bob Voigt. I've been associated with the program for a long time, so I've seen lots of you around over the years. But again, welcome. I think we want to start off by introducing the new fellows that came in this year. So they're sitting up here, and when I call your name, would you stand up and turn so people can see who you are? So, Richard Barnes, Casey Berger, Maximilian Brenner, Zane Crawford, Ian Dunn, Carson Kent. All right, we lost Carson somewhere. Hannah Killen, Noah Mandel, Helena Key, and two new fellows, Nicholas Bothai and Emmett Cleary, were unable to make it to this meeting. So we have 11 fellows for this year. So welcome to the class of 2015. From time to time, there will be announcements up on the board at the beginning of the sessions, so I'm not going to go through announcements, but you'll see those as you come in. So we'd like to start off this morning with the representation from the Office of Science, Stephen Brinkley. Steve is the Associate Director of the Advanced Scientific Computing Research, and there's a bug up here, in the Department of Energy's Office of Science. He oversees the research program of the office. That includes research in various aspects of mathematics, computer science, and also with the procurement and positioning of high-performance computing systems for the Office of Science facilities. He's been at Sandia National Labs. He's also been at the Department of Homeland Security, where he managed programs that were looking to develop techniques for providing emergency responses to various catastrophe-type situations. In 2006, he returned to the Department of Energy as Senior Technical Advisor to the Undersecretary of Science and the Director of the Office of Science. So please help me welcome Steve.
Okay, so let me start by saying it's really a pleasure to be here and have the opportunity to speak to you today. I think you'll find that we at DOE really hold the CSGF program in very high regard, and I'd like to say a little bit about that this morning. Also would like to point out that I'm accompanied today by Barbara Helland and Christine Chalk. They're sitting in the front row here. Barb and Christine have long been very strong proponents of the CSGF program. I have to tell you that they champion the CSGF program very actively inside the department. And then also Doug Wade and Took and Emily are here from NNSA. I think Doug is going to have remarks after I'm finished as well. Our two respective offices provide the funding for CSGF, or at least a large portion of it, and have done so over many years. Let's see, I think the first thing that I'd like to talk about is I know that in the last couple of years there have been a number of concerns over the stability of funding in the CSGF program. There were changes in policies in OMB, the Office of Management and Budget, and then there were some issues that we had with some of the appropriations committees in the Congress. And I think over the course of the last year or two, those issues have been worked out. And we're hoping that the CSGF program moving forward will be on an even keel funding-wise. I do want to tell you that the issue of stability of funding for the CSGF has actually gotten to very high levels in the department. People very high up in our organizational structure are watching this closely. And I'm hoping that things will move forward smoothly now. It looks like we have pretty clear guidance in the appropriations that are in process right now, and I assure you that the Office of Science will essentially meet its commitments in that as we move forward. Let's see, there are three main points that I wanted to stress this morning. And the first of them is that we're at a very exciting time in high-performance computing. When you look across the landscape, high-performance computing pervades much of what the Department of Energy does. And if you look at it more broadly, high-performance computing is actually very important in a societal context. Almost all of the products that we come into contact with, the services and so on, in some way relate back to high-performance computing. Modeling and simulation is really a cornerstone of modern engineering and design. And a lot of the commercial products that are in the commercial sector these days have some relationship back to high-performance computing. And I think it's also fair to say that high-performance computing really underpins a lot of what you see in various sectors of the economy, like the transportation sector, the energy sector, and so on. I can also tell you that from a science perspective, which is what the Office of Science is really concerned with, high-performance computing has become an indispensable tool. If you look at the sequence of how modern science is done, HPC underpins almost everything we do these days. And I think Doug will have similar remarks about the scope and importance of HPC when he talks about the national security side here in a few minutes. In many respects, HPC is becoming a pacing element in what we do, and especially if you look at what's happening with the large experimental type operations that the Office of Science does, many of which produce copious quantities of data. And I think as we move out over the next decade, we're going to see even more importance in very, very high-end computing when it comes to processing and analyzing data that comes from experiments, and also processing data that comes from observational facilities like some of the telescopes that are being planned. There's also observational data that we collect from atmospheric measurements and so on. And I think there's going to be greater importance attached to analyzing those data and extracting knowledge and features of importance from them. And HPC will play a key role in that. The second point that I really wanted to make is that because of this importance of HPC across the missions of the department, CSGF actually plays a very important role for us in DOE. It's absolutely essential that we have some mechanism to essentially provide for the next generations of computational scientists so that there are competent people around in the next decade who can actually apply these tools to the problems that are of importance to the department. And as I think you know, being a computational scientist really requires a very careful admixture of multiple disciplines. And it's this multidisciplinary facet of CSGF that both makes it a problem in one sense, but it also makes it a really important opportunity. You really have to have the requisite skills in computer science, applied mathematics, and the physical and engineering sciences to be able to effectively understand and apply these tools to the problems that are of interest. And it's this feature of the CSGF that really makes it important to us in the department. You know, we don't, if you think about it for a second, the Department of Energy doesn't support this out of just altruistic reasons. It's because the Department of Energy is ultimately a mission-oriented agency, and the CSGF is providing a very, very important means of producing the next generations of people who can apply these tools to the problems that the department has. And then the last point that I would like to make, I do intend to be brief this morning, is that it's really important as the CSGF evolves to keep an open mind regarding the technologies and essentially the future of the program from a technological perspective. And if you look at the way Krell has managed CSGF over the last 2+ decades, Krell has actually done a very good job at keeping track of where HPC is going. But the reason that I bring this up is that clearly the really, really high-end computing is reaching a key phase in its history. If you look at what's happening with the physics of the microcircuits that go into computers, the feature sizes are shrinking down to scales that some people are speculating that Moore's law is essentially running out. And when you look at the technologies that underpin the lithography that goes into these computers, there's reason to be concerned about this. And it's this kind of a technological discontinuity that over the next decade is going to drive us to looking at other options and other ways of doing this type of science. And so it's really important that Krell and the CSGF program evolve in that way over the next decade. You know, I think the landscape will change in the next decade, and it's important to keep that in mind as we move forward. And then lastly, what do we at DOE need from you? Well, you know, when you look back at the troubles that we've had over the last couple of years, the one thing that we've always been able to fall back on as the ultimate justification for the importance of CSGF is the excellence of the program and the quality of the people that come out of the CSGF program. The way Krell has gone about managing CSGF over the last 2 decades has insisted constantly on the very highest standards of the people in the program and has produced a level of excellence that I think is unsurpassed in most of the graduate fellowship type programs that I come into contact with. And so I would urge that Krell and all of the people who are involved in CSGF continue to sustain that very, very high level of excellence. That's actually, I think, the most important feature in terms of, if you think of it in a strategic context, that's the most important feature for sustaining the future of the CSGF program. And with that, I'd like to conclude.